Hello, and welcome to my live. I am Coach Sherri, and this is Real Talk with Coach Sherri. And I noticed that YouTube has podcasts, and I am creating a version of my lives as a podcast so that it can be found on my channel, where all the tabs are that shows you where the videos, where the shorts, where the lives, and then they have a tab that is branded as podcast. And I think that's really neat. I have done quite a few lives, and I know that in the past, I always wished that YouTube was more of a podcast, and people would always refer to my lives, especially the ones where I did interviews, as podcasts. And so I'm glad to see that tab. And, what better time to start than the present for sure. But I'm happy to be here this evening. Today was a very full day, was a wonderful day. I hope you had a great weekend so far. Today is Saturday, July 29th. And again, I am Coach Sherri, and this channel is about career development, entrepreneurship, real life, real issues, and real talk. So, I have been married for 28 years, and my husband and I dated for about 3.5 years before we got married. And what I am noticing is that in relationships, especially the ones where, it's young adults, they are not effectively communicating anymore. And that's because of texting and social media. In many relationships, they rather text than call. They rather text than having those deep rooted conversations where you can really get real time answers, where the person doesn't have the ability to confer with someone or to look up the response, that it's real time contact and information. And that is really, I think, the downfall of many relationships, because when you can't communicate back and forth, you don't really get to know the real person. They don't get to know you either. You don't know what their feelings are, you don't know what their likes, their dislikes are. You don't really find out much about them. And unfortunately, people are more into the physical, and then when they do maybe commit to one another, get married or move in together, the real life happens, and they realize, you know what, I don't really like this person. You know what, this person and I don't really gel. We don't really have anything in common. And that's why asking questions is so important, because you get to know who that person truly is. So I know years ago, people used to tell me, oh, you know what, you should write a book on relationships, because I really enjoyed dating. Dating to me was really, getting to know that person, having them get to know me, and just doing things that were going to develop and create memories that would last a lifetime. And so that is something that's also an art, that's also a craft, a gift. And I just wanted to come on here to share with you some possible questions. If you're into a relationship now, or you want to get into a serious relationship, these are some questions that I think would be very helpful for you. Now, these are some questions that I pulled from a study. So, years ago, a group did some research on relationships and questions, and they came up with 36 questions. I don't have 36 here today. I'm only going to do 10, but 36 questions. And these were psychologists, and they did this over 20 years ago. And they wanted to explore whether it was possible to help strangers create closeness and develop a relationship by asking a series of specific personal questions. And I really believe that you can develop personal relationships by asking specific, deep questions. And if you are in a relationship and you are finding that your communication is lacking, maybe these questions can help you. It's never too late to start asking questions. you don't want to wait too late. I shouldn't say it's never too late, but you definitely don't want to wait too late, because if you do, then you might find yourself, you know, looking to break up or get a divorce or separation or what have you. So, without further ado, I am going to start with the first question. So, when you ask these questions, you don't want to make it seem like it's a interview, like you're interrogating them. You definitely want to ask the questions in a conversation way. So that's the key. This is not via text, it's not via social media. You either have to be on the phone or in person. So when my husband and I met, it was he had just purchased a condo and he was having a get together. And in the get together, it was a few other females, a couple of guys, and unfortunately, he did not have all of his furniture yet. And I was the only one that was dressed very casual. I was dressed super casual. And so I was able to sit Indian style on the floor, and that's what we did. Hi, Roxanne59. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being here in the live. Um, and so he loved, I didn't know at the time because I had just met him, but he loved sitting on the floor and just kind of relaxing. And so he and I sat there and we talked for most of the night, just getting to know each other, asking each other questions. We had a lot of things in common. And when I left, he asked for my number. And the next day, he called me on the phone and we talked for hours, and just getting to know each other, sharing our thoughts, our dreams, things that were funny, stories about our families, about school, college, friends, places we've been, people we've met. And we just really got along very well, which led to other dates. And it eventually blossomed into a relationship. And then 3 years later, engagement, then marriage. 28 years later, here we are. So I'm not sure. I can't remember the questions that we asked, but I do know that we always kept the lines of communication open, and um, just asking each other different questions, knowing each other very well, and not being surprised after you say I do. So you want to try and get questions answered and realize who a person truly is. And a year is really a good measurement, because 4 seasons, and some people, they respond differently to life. When it's cold, sometimes when it's hot, they might start to feel themselves and not be available. Just, you never know, but you really want to give any relationship you're in at least 1 year. So this is the first question. What would you constitute a perfect day for you? So that's a great question. If you are an extrovert and you're dating someone who's an introvert, but they're not really showcasing that they're an introvert, because they're trying to, maybe they're trying to make a change, maybe they're trying to break out of their shell, but you want to know this beforehand, because then you would know if you are willing to accept someone who just maybe wants to stay indoors and not really go out, or if you're the introvert and they're the extrovert and they might be trying to slow down their life, but they really want to go out and be amongst a lot of people all the time. You really want to know what that type of a day would look for them. What is their perfect day? Is their perfect day just staying indoors and playing video games? Is their perfect day staying inside and just, maybe they love to clean, and so they're in cleaning all the time, or reading a book? Or is their perfect day being around friends? Maybe they like to be around too many people and don't have time for you. Or maybe their perfect day would be to go away on vacation. They like to travel or shopping. Then you might know, well, this person may like to spend a lot of money. So you really want to understand, what constitutes a perfect day for you. And that's a very valid question. And any question that you ask, definitely expect to respond with your answer as well. So you need to have a high level of self-awareness when you're asking someone questions, because then they're going to turn it on you. And if they don't, then that might even be a situation, because if they're not asking you questions back, maybe they're not curious about you and they just don't care. That might be someone that is self-centered, you know. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you're asking them like, how's your day, or what have you been up to, or how was this, or what are you going to do next, and they tell you, they respond, but they never ask you back. They never say, well, how was your day too, or what are you doing? That's concerning. So you need to, that's a red flag, and you need to look into that a little deeper. So the second question is, what are three things that are important for you and your partner to have in common? What are three things for you and your partner to have in common? Now, as I'm asking these questions here in this live, I want you to really start to reflect and do some have some self-awareness around some of these questions, because if you are going to ask those questions of others, you should know what you want from someone. You know, what would be important, um what would be an important response that you would like, or three things that are important. Is it for them to have integrity? Is it for them to like to work out? Is it for them to like to travel? Is it for them to like to spend time with family? What are the three things that are important for you and your partner to have in common? So you have to know what you want from a partner and know what you bring, because again, if that table is turned and the question is asked of you, you need to have a self awareness to be able to respond, for sure. Good to see you, Vernell. Good evening to you. Yes, communication and understand and the love of God and family. Yes, absolutely. So you want to know. And so that would be your response to something like that, for sure. And that would be mine too. What are the three things? And so it could be God, it could be, the relationship that they have with their siblings or their parents. What would those three things that are important? And the third question is, if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would that be? And this question gives more insight on how a person was raised. Maybe they were raised in a household where the parents didn't communicate, or where the mother didn't cook. I have to say, I didn't cook too much, or where they weren't home very often. They may have gone to babysitters or daycares, or stayed after school. Their days away from home were much longer than their days in their home. Maybe they would have preferred to be raised around family, extended family. So, just finding out how they were raised, understanding that, because that also shapes how a person is. That also shapes how they will be in a relationship, and expectations that they may have for your household, for sure. Hey, Black Guns and Gardens, good to see you. How are you doing this Saturday evening? It's a late Saturday night, and I just said, you know what? I was thinking about this today, and I said, let me come on here and talk about questions and language and communication in relationships. I think that is so important. A lot of people are veering away from it because of texting and social media. And, you're seeing families where there's no verbal language happening, and everyone might be sitting around with their phones and just texting, maybe even texting each other as they sit next to each other. And that's just not that's just not good. And it's a suffering, it's a missing link, it's a missing piece of the puzzle, a big piece, and is making even young people that are exposed to those types of relationships, is making them less communicative in their own relationships, even with their siblings, with their parents. They aren't answering questions effectively verbally. So this is, to me, this, I hold this very near and dear. I know we don't allow phones at the dinner table. Um, I rather call than just text. I mean, you text when it's really quick and just kind of like for clarity purposes or directions or something like that. But really verbal communication is key. Yes, understanding a child's point of view without overruling the parent's authority. Yes. I am doing pretty good, Black Guns and Rose and Gardens. Thank you for asking. It was a great day. Actually went to the movies this evening, just got back and had a good time. It was interesting. Went to go see that Barbie movie, and they had some pretty good scenes with messages in there. Definitely I want to say a women's empowerment movie for sure. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. So let's see, what number are we up to? So we're at 3. So let's look at question 4. Is there something that you dreamed of doing for a long time, and why haven't you done it? So this also goes into, what type of initiative does a person have? You can dream of things, but if you're not taking action, that could be a problem. It could be a challenge in a relationship because these are patterns that are showing up. And oftentimes, when it could be a young couple in their early 20s, or it could be early in a relationship where things like this, you just kind of brush it off and say, well, um, it's okay. They don't have to go for that. That's a big dream. And I can understand if they haven't done anything towards it yet, but they should at least be researching, doing some due diligence around anything that's huge. I know when I dated my husband, his dream was to own laundromats. And I never knew anyone. We were 22 and 23 when we met, and I never knew anyone that owned a laundromat. Like, what? Like, that was just something different. And, I'm talking, this is the early 1990s. And he did research and realized, laundromats are recession proof. And that was just a big dream that he had. And within 10 years of that dream, of him telling me about it, we had 2 laundromats. So at least I knew that he had that dream, but he understood why he had that dream and continuously did research, read up on, tried to meet people, networking to get that, to make that a reality. But if you have someone that's just like, oh, I want to, you know, own my own, I don't know, dairy farm, but they're not moving towards it at all. They don't know why they want to own their own dairy farm. They're not meeting anyone who owns their own dairy farm to have conversations about it. It's just like these big dreams. Oh, I'm going to take you around the world. Oh, we're going to cruise all through the Greek islands. Oh, I'm going to do this. We're going to do that. And they never really are making any extra moves to get you closer or get themselves closer to that big dream. Big dreams are amazing, and some of them, no, you might not be able to put anything in place yet for them, but they should be within reason that, yeah, you know what, I may not have ever heard of that dream or know anyone that has accomplished that type of dream, but I can see that's a real thing, because there's some people, all they do is dream. And sometimes when people, all they do is dream, sometimes they'll either be paralyzed within that dream and not do anything, no movement, or they'll just throw all their money away into those dreams. And then you find yourself, wow, we don't have anything because you tried to follow that dream that really wasn't a good fit for you. So you need to have dreams within reason for sure. Number 5 is, what does friendship mean to you? So, friendship in a love relationship is very important, and so many people do not understand the um, the alignment of it. And I've always said that I not only love my husband, but I like him. And that means, I enjoy his company, I enjoy his personality. He's also a friend, my lover, spouse, all of that. And it is so possible to have that, but again, having these questions will help you understand if that person is someone that you actually like. And with friendships, you like your friends, so what does it mean to you when you ask your partner what does it mean to them, but also what does it mean to you? Um, some people might look at friends as just some people that oh, it's just someone I know, someone that lives in my area, someone that I work with, or, very vague. No, you want to be very specific. A friend is someone that can be almost like family, someone that you can count on, someone that you enjoy doing things with, someone that you don't mind being in the company with, for sure. Vernell is saying that is good. You go out today and went to the movies. I went too. Yes. Okay. That's cool that you went to the movies also, Vernell. I really missed that, going to the movies. That's one thing that COVID did, taking that kind of activity away for a long time. And it's amazing, as we were looking at the trailers, how they advertised for Prime movies and Hulu. And I was like, those are your biggest competitions. I couldn't believe that they were advertising, shows that are on those platforms. But I guess everyone is saying, listen, all hands on deck. We all here together as one and let's do this. So, um, but I'm glad that you went. Oh, you went out. Okay. So you went out. I went to the movies. All right. So you was out and about. How's the weather out there on the West Coast? Here it was hot and humid, but we had a really, really, pretty bad thunderstorm. But that I was in a movie theater when that happened. I didn't even realize it was supposed to rain today, and it did, and that cooled it off really nicely. So I'm glad that we did get that rain because we've had some oven hot, oven hot days. So, what does friendship mean to you? Is another great question to have in a conversation with someone you are in a relationship with. Some people look at friendship as just as important as the relationship that they have with their partner. And that, that really can't be. I know when I got married, my mother told me, you know, your friendships have to change. You have to compartmentalize and prioritize your spouse because you are married now. And it's true, especially if you're married and your friends are not, if they're single, they have different responsibilities, they have different thoughts around, relationships. Even, when you are, a virtuous woman and you are in a relationship that's respectful, you're going to give that respect that you get. And if you're with people who are not in relationships, who are very independent, and when you say things that, well, no, I'm not really going to go out tonight, or I can't go there. Not that I can't, it's just that you know that you need to spend that quality time at home. And if they don't understand that, because they may not be in a relationship, that can cause conflict. So you definitely have to have barriers. I want to say when you have friendships, I never had a challenge with any of my friends, my line sisters, or anything. They were always respectful of my relationship. My husband was always respectful of the relationships that I had prior to meeting him, as well as relationships that I had developed during our relationship. And I think that's because I never put them over him, or our family. But definitely you want to know what your partner's thoughts are around friendships and what does it mean to them. Okay. Yes, that's good to hear, Vernell. I'm telling you, the West Coast, not including fires for sure, any of the forest fires, but the weather is always so pleasant on the West Coast. Although when I was in Sacramento, when was that? In March, it was chilly and rainy, But I know in LA it's always sunny. It never rains in Southern California, as the song goes. But I do know it does rain periodically. But I'm glad that the weather was good for you today. And then another question you can ask your partner to complete this sentence. I wish I had someone with whom I could share. And what would they want to share? Someone that they could share um, their new experiences with, someone that they can share their wealth with, someone that they can share their time with. What is something that they wish that they could have someone to whom they could share? And again, you definitely have to think about these responses for yourself. I highly recommend before you ask anyone any question, be prepared to answer it for yourself. So, having self awareness is really important. That's key. That's number one. And try and think of things in your life that you would like to share. And it could be someone that you want to share your bed with, someone that you want to share your time with. What is it that you would like to share? And these are real talk conversations. Again, you don't want to do it as an interview, you're doing it as just a conversation, getting to know someone, seeing how your lives could commingle, how you can cohabitate together and maybe build a future together. So asking questions is very, very important. Yes, that is a story too. It rains in Southern California, and it's been raining a lot this year. I think all around the country it's been raining more than usual. And I'm not sure, what that means, what kind of shift the earth is making, but for some reason it has been raining all over. I know here in the Carolinas, we've had quite a bit of rain, especially in the spring. And I know the springtime we usually get a lot of rain, but it was just exceptional this year for some reason. All right. So, yes, I wish I had someone with whom I could share. So again, you want to think about that. I know my husband and I both really, really love boxers, dogs, the breed boxer. And before we had children, we had a boxer dog, and that was our trial baby. And we shared in raising him. We shared in everything around him, walking him, feeding him, grooming him, because we knew that was a partnership we'd have to have, especially once we became parents. One task completely did not have to fall on just one person. And so that was a great test for us to see how we could work together doing that. And we were very successful, I want to say. And we had him for almost 4 years before we had our first son. And we just really kept up with that, being a partner, having a partnership in the rearing. It wasn't like, oh, only women could do this or only men could do that. It was whatever we both needed to do. We did it, and that was it. So you definitely want to have that conversation before you start having children, before you say I do and commit, because what if the person is selfish and they really don't want to share? I know one time this young man that I knew said, you know, do married couples have to live in the same house? And I never heard of such. And, if someone that he married never had a real conversation with him about cohabitation, it might be a time when he's like, listen, I don't want us to live in the same house. I said, do you mean like the same room? He said, no, house. Like, can't sometimes, you have one place and she has another, and then sometimes you'll get together. I'm like, no, that makes no sense to me. Then why even bother getting married? But in his mind, that he didn't really see any problems with that. And I would say if someone is thoughts or responses to questions that you have are totally against who you are, what your expectations are, what you value, then don't ever think that once you get married, okay, now they're going to change, because that doesn't happen. And people, I don't know why they are, I mean, this is since the beginning of time, people are so amazed when it doesn't happen. They're like, I thought that things were going to be different. Why would you think that? Believe them the first time. Travel is yours. You love to travel. So sharing travel with a partner is important too, especially if that's something that is important to you. And if you get into a relationship with someone who does not like to travel, and maybe they don't want you to travel either for whatever reason, that can cause conflict. It's not saying that one person has the authority over the other to tell them what they can or cannot do, but in a relationship, if you are doing something that is a complete game changer for your partner, it can cause serious conflict. So that's why understanding what your partner in and out is very important. Okay, let's see the next question. Okay, so first you would share an embarrassing moment with your partner. You know, you have to be able to laugh at yourself, but you also have to be able to show your vulnerability. And so sharing an embarrassing moment, it could be funny. I mean, I know sometimes if something embarrassing happens to me, I don't really look at it as embarrassing more than funny. But at least your partner will know how far to go, because some people really, really get embarrassed. And some people look at those kind of situations as humorous. And so if your partner is sharing something that was totally embarrassing, it really made them feel some kind of way, it took them a while to recover from it, you might want to be mindful moving forward, because if you would have found that humorous, you have to have empathy for your partner, and know not to laugh when something like that happens, and maybe show them more grace and concern and compassion, when if they have those moments, for sure. How was that person raised? You know what? um his parents were not together. I feel like he might have been raised by his grandmother, um because that's who he does the most for. That's who he always talks about when it comes to um, family members currently. Um, and I do believe he is married, and I want to say they are separate, and he's very, very private about his marriage. He doesn't say anything about his wife at all. So he's interesting. And if a person is not into that type of relationship, I mean, it comes out early. So it shouldn't be a surprise. And that's why asking questions are very important. And never think that a person is going to change, or that you don't like the person or anything like that. If anything, it'll escalate much later. A person can play, um, can be, what's it called, a chameleon, or um, they could pretend to be one way, but for so long. And it's not years. It typically it's usually maybe a year or two before their true selves come out. And so, and when it comes out, believe them for sure. Okay, number 8, tell your partner something that you already love about them. And when I hear young people, or even elder, older people, seasoned people, might be their second or third marriage, getting married, entering into, to me, one of the most sacred bonds and unions that you can enter into. I'll always ask, what do you love about them? Like, aren't you, you're so happy. So what is it that you love most about them? And sometimes people aren't able to tell me. They might love a thing. They might love that the person is independent and has their own house. They may love that the person has certain degrees. They may love that the person has a certain income level. Those are not reasons to love, those aren't things that make that person who they truly are inside. People would say to me, I remember my husband and I went to a huge Italian wedding, and we were actually dating. And it was one of the biggest weddings I've ever been to, one of the most beautiful weddings I ever been to. I mean, the bridal shower was beautiful than most weddings I had attended at that time. And I just remember at the wedding, because my husband was a New York Giant, and the wedding was in Brooklyn, and there were these young Italian girls that came up to me and they were like, "Oh my goodness, what is it like dating a giant?" And I was like, I mean, that's just what he does. I could tell you what it's like dating, and I said my husband's name, because I'm not dating a giant, I'm dating him. Being a giant is his occupation, that's his profession, that's not who he is. It's like if you were dating a doctor or a plumber or a mechanic or an electrician, engineer. You're not dating them. That's their, I mean, you're not dating their profession, their occupation. You're dating who that person is. And so you have to pull out something real about them. Is it their personality? Do you love how they are so thoughtful? Like for instance, my son, if I point out something that I love, like it might be a notebook, it might be a symbol of something for my birthday and Christmas, oh, I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna have that thing, and I only have to tell him once. So to me, that's very thoughtful, observant, and he's really very considerate, and that's a beautiful thing. It may be a person that can listen well and actively listen to you, where you know that they're not, their mind is not wandering off, that they are really focused on what you're saying, and they hear you. you know, that's something that you can love about someone. You may love that they would do anything for you, and it doesn't have to be monetary. It could be just considering your feelings, adding you to the conversation and to the equation in their life. That also could be something that you love about them. But you should know, when you are in a relationship, what is it about that person that you actually love? One thing I always say to people if I go to their weddings and looking around, and especially if I see that it is a true union, these two people love each other and God really put them together, let no man take them apart. And when they have family and friends in the building that love them too, I always say, look around right now on this day, and always remember all of these people love and believe in you, and never forget the feeling that you have for each other on this day. Just like she's my cousin, but she's more of my niece. Just had her first baby, her and her husband. And she's so happy. She was in the hospital, and I said, as you raise your son, remember this day. This is the most precious gift that God could ever give you. Remember this day, that the love that you feel for him, and the fact that you are charged to groom him to the best of your ability. You were selected to be his mother and father. And always remember this day, this feeling. Because I think as life goes on, people forget about those sacred moments. And it's so important to remember them. And so when you fall in love with a person, that's why it can't be surface. It has to be deep. So when there are challenging moments, and if you live long enough, or if you're in a situation long enough, it might be, but you want to be able to reach down deep and get those reasons, because if it's surface, oh, they'll float away, they'll dissolve quickly, with the quickness, with the blink of the eye. And so you definitely want them to be deep, deep rooted. You want to ask a question about, what is your most treasured memory? You want to see how observant they are, how deep they are. What that shows you what they value most. And when people hear treasure, they always are thinking about, maybe jewelry, gold, money. Treasures are things of value, tangible things, not things that are emotional, not things that are maybe physical. So what is a treasured memory? Something that makes you smile, something that makes you feel warm all over. It might be the food that your grandmother made, the aroma of the food. For me, it's when I used to come home from college, and when I'd open that front door, I would smell my mother's lasagna because she knew that was my favorite, and she would always make it for me when I came home. And the house would be warm, and just the aroma and the warmth of the home was like the first hug to me. So, what are some of the most treasured memories? It could be the family reunion where all the family gathered, for every major holiday, or maybe just every other year in the summer, and everyone just hanging out, laughing, growing, and just enjoying each other. What are some of those treasured memories? And again, think of your own treasured memories so you can share those too. And the final question is, what is the greatest accomplishment of your life? And so when we think about accomplishments in our life, some people might say, well, I haven't had any yet. And that is having a low self awareness because you have accomplished something great. And we have to keep a laundry list of all the things that we've done, especially the great things, because those are transferring with us. No one could ever take that away from us. They are adding value to who we are. And if you don't remember those great accomplishments, then you will always feel like you will always feel slightly empty. And that's why it's important to keep a tab on that and be able to say some of the things that you've done great. Doing something great doesn't mean that it earned you a lot of money. Doing something great doesn't mean that it earned you a lot of accolades. Doing something great may be even as simple as helping someone on a political campaign and they won. Doing something great could be you went and instead of your parents needing to hire a plumber, you were able to fix the toilet for them. Doing something great could be money that you saved on your job because you were able to streamline a process. So think about all the things in your life that you've accomplished that were great, and don't belittle that. A lot of times people don't feel comfortable giving themselves a tap on the back. When was the last time you told yourself job well done? We'll tell other people that in a heartbeat, but when was the last time you told yourself that? And that is a thing that you have to really take responsibility for and reflect on. You have to be your best advocate. You have to truly love and trust yourself first before anyone can come into your life to love and trust you. So, those are the 10 questions that I have. And I hope that you were able to see how this is important for love language and questions that may lead to love. Again, communication has changed a lot over the years. And, some people may say asking questions like this are old fashioned, but let it be that. People used to call my mother old fashioned a lot. And it served her well. So, we have to get back to communicating effectively with those in our circle, especially the ones that we love and want to build a future with. Because if you don't have that strong foundation starts with understanding, will this ground be solid enough to hold the foundation? And if you don't know that first, you can pour as much cement, lay as many bricks as you want. If the ground is weak, if the ground is soft, it will still crumble. So you want to make sure that it's all strong and all good. Well, that's all that I have for you this evening. And again, this is like my first official, I guess, podcast that Real Talk with Coach Sherri. And I hope that you enjoyed it. Many of you will probably be seeing this on the replay. And it's been my pleasure sharing all of this information with you. Be sure to talk this out with your circle, with your family, with your friends. If you have young adults in your life that are going out there dating, share these questions with them. This is some old school stuff, but it's still very relevant. And maybe they don't know how to ask questions, how to have these conversations. So it's definitely up to us to share this with them. All right, until we speak again, stay safe. Thank you again for tuning in. If you liked this information, give this video, this podcast, a thumbs up. All right, take care.